In the fall of 2019, the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station in Plymouth was purchased by Holtec Decommissioning International for the purpose of decommissioning the site. The purchase of the site included access to a trust fund of over $1 billion to cover Holtec's expenses. These funds come from nearly 3 decades of payments made by customers of Boston Edison for the purpose of decommissioning. The reported price that Holtec paid for the site and the included trust fund was around $1,000. So who is Holtec?
Welcome to Holtec International, a world leader in engineering, design, and custom manufactured equipment to the energy industry and beyond. Founded in 1986, Holtec has expanded globally with operation centers around the world. Holtec's 4 manufacturing plants use state-of-the-art fabrication and automation tools to create cutting-edge technology and innovative equipment. This long-standing experience in spent fuel management has now positioned Holtec as a premier leader in decommissioning of shuttered nuclear power plants. Holtec innovation continues to evolve with the design of its SMR-160 small modular reactor, the licensing of the High-Store Consolidated Interim Storage Facility in southeastern New Mexico, a safe, secure, retrievable, temporary storage solution. With innovation that knows no limits and technology that continually evolves, it is clear why we say Holtec International, a generation ahead by design.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Holtec is an international company that has so much money that they can run roughshod over communities and get away with it. They're doing that in New Mexico. They're doing that at Oyster Creek. In fact, in Oyster Creek in New Jersey at their reactor, they dumped water from their spent fuel pool into Barnegat Bay while oyster farmers were seeding their areas and did not tell them. They're planning to dump. They bought Indian Point on the Hudson River just north of New York City. They're planning to dump that water, which is drinking water, for 100,000 people. And the Environmental Protection Agency has said the maximum contaminant level for radionuclides in drinking water should be 0.
In December of 2021, Holtec made it known that they intended to dump 1.1 million gallons of radioactive wastewater into Cape Cod Bay.
This is the back and forth word game that Holtec is doing with the Environmental Protection Agency, with Senator Markey, and with us. Senator Markey, Senator Warren, and Representative Keating told Holtec on January 12, 2022, you're not dumping in the bay. On February 17, 2022, the EPA said any such discharge is strictly prohibited. What does Holtec say? It is within the plain language of the NIPD's permit and is consistent with the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding and past discharges. They're saying we're doing it. June 17th, the EPA said Holtec is not authorized under the current permit to discharge pollutants in the spent fuel pool water. July 7th, EPA tells them again, you cannot, because Holtec said that they could discharge treated water, that it complies with the permit. EPA had to tell them again, no it doesn't and you can't dump. November 17th, Holtec says, we expect to be using treated water release as part of our plan. November 28th, Holtec, David Noyes, the senior compliance manager of Holtec, said the company believes it is already legally allowed to dump the water. When asked if there would be no discharge prior to the resolution of the permit issue, he said, I can't say that. This is almost a whole year now of this back and forth. And then on December, Holtec said, all the water volumes will be independently processed and then combined for a single water volume for final processing treatment prior to discharge. What don't they get?
In the most recent Nuclear Decommission Citizens Advisory Panel meeting, representatives from Holtec listened to questions from the community.
I started a petition on change.org asking Holtec CEO Krishna P. Singh to please retract his plan to dump 1.1 million gallons of radioactive water into Cape Cod Bay. Tonight I have chosen to present to Holtec a portion of those signatures as many as I could fit into this binder. In closing, I'd like to mention that on the Holtec website, it is stated that Holtec is, and I quote, a learning organization, forever striving for a higher standard of excellence. CEO Krishna, if you happen to be listening, then I'd like you to know that I personally feel that right now is a wonderful opportunity for you to demonstrate this higher standard of excellence by acquiescing to our collective wishes as a community in agreeing to no longer consider dumping this water into our beloved Cape Cod Bay.
Question number one, what is your plan of date to take down that spent fuel pool building?
Current plan has reactor building demolition from 2025 through 2027.
Okay. And what will you do if it would take more than 12 months for a NPDES permit to be issued?
It may have an impact on the decommissioning schedule, which would have an impact on dismantling that building.
And that's understandable. So will Holtec abide by that timeline? That's the yes or no.
We will not discharge without a permit.
Okay. 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 And according to Governor Healy, it's not allowed in the state of Massachusetts. So we're expecting our state officials to uphold those laws. Thank you.
So that should settle it, right? Holtec won't dump without a new permit, and a new permit won't be approved because the dumping of radioactive wastewater is illegal.
Holtec is about the money, the decommissioning trust fund. They want to leave town with that money. Doesn't matter what they do. They'll dump in our bay. They'll contaminate our waters. They'll put our kids at risk for $1, okay? This quote, Holtec, a company with an extremely questionable history and extremely questionable present, as reflected in various misrepresentations alleged herein, that is from a lawsuit by the New Mexican Attorney General against the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and naming Holtec for misrepresentation and illegal activities. So what they're doing is not something new. It's what they do. It's part of their business plan. Okay? So it's cheaper for Holtec to violate the laws and pay a fine rather than implement an environmentally responsible plan.
In Holtec's own financial reporting, they estimated that after decommission is complete, that there will be approximately $250 million left in the trust fund. Holtec keeps that money as profit. In addition, they have already acknowledged intent to sue the U.S. Department of Energy for spent fuel storage costs.
When Pine Dubois, the vice chair, said, what about the spent fuel costs? We want to assure we have money for that. Clearly, that is true. However, that money for spent fuel management costs is reimbursed by the federal government, DOE, for not satisfying its agreement to take the waste in 1998. So in fact, Holtec is going to make out like a bandit with that money because they estimated the cost for spent fuel management will be about $500 million. They will get the reimbursement and can pocket that money. So add $500 million to the estimated leftover, and you get a very, I think, generous profit.
Disposal options that don't include dumping in the bay would cost Holtec around $20 million, estimates say, a cost that Holtec doesn't seem to want to take on.
I'm here because of the Minamata, and I think that a lot of you may not know who the Minamata are, but you're doing a good job at preventing being Minamata. The Minamata at the second half of the 20th century were fishing people off the coast of Japan who discovered that all of the birth defects and birth abnormalities were due to mercury poisoning that a large corporation was responsible for and knew that they were doing and knew that there would be deleterious effects, and they did it anyway. And that's why we're here. Tritium has a half-life of 12 and a half years. Tritium is dangerous for between 120 and 240 years. Tritium bioaccumulates. We know that the apex predators that you eat, like tuna, accumulate mercury. It's exactly the same process. Strontium that ends up in a fish, if you cook that fish and eat it, you end up with the strontium. And the huge problem that we face is that we have a National Academies of Science that determined 17 years ago, finally, that there's no safe level below which radiation is, it's not dangerous. But we have a Nuclear Regulatory Commission that refuses to take that understanding, that science, into account. So they're providing cover for a giant corporation to allow a giant corporation to dump radioactive water, they're saying in a low enough concentration that somehow that's not dangerous, when in fact, for hundreds and thousands of years after that dumping, these radionuclides are going to bioaccumulate up the food chain, where they will then become most dangerous to our childbearing age women and young children, because those parts of our population have the fastest dividing cells. That's what this is about. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak.